I just want to say, sir, you look extremely elegant.
Oh, yay.
I was really tickled, and I says, well, thank you, madam. I said, madam, because she said, I says, you wouldn't believe these were made out of a prison blanket. And she says, get away. I says, yes. I says, it's a blanket during the period of protest in the jail, and I was on it, got this. And she says, oh, I remember those days, they were very, very tough days, but you came through it. And I want to say again, you look extremely elegant.
Yes.
And I was really moved.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
So it was great, and I ended up on RTE, like the radio program, the arts program did it, and Irish Times, which is made. So it was interesting how by presenting, because as soon as I was asking, so East Close, where did East Close come from? Or as well, I come from the blanket, protest, hunger strike, so you bring out the whole story.
Yeah, it's all right.
But it's done through arts, and somehow it seems okay. Yeah. And okay, times have moved on since then, but the idea was to subvert that image, to say that we've lived on through it, we survived that, we're proud of her today. And actually one of the women who was photographed in it, she just died there 2 weeks ago, so it's like, wow. She died, it shows you the importance of documenting, and particularly the women's story, because you never get the same coverage of actually engaging in that type of thing. And funny, Mary Neelis, the woman I was talking about there earlier, who had the sons in it, whenever I first said to her about it, she says, no, I'm not so sure, it sounds a wee bit, a calendar, are we sort of, she thought maybe trivialising things a wee bit. Right, and then when she did it, she says, I'm delighted I did it. Good. I didn't see what would be the impact, you know. So that's how a lot of the art stuff happened. And then we got out of jail, and me and Brian wanted to write a film about the hunger strike called H3, and then we started to work as a playwright and doing everything else at the same time. And Brian tragically died 2005, he was only 45, and I continued on doing my own stuff. And ours has been to use the arts, and particularly theatre, or film too, to raise a lot of the issues that are there. It's a safe place to raise issues. And it humanises people. I mean, the last play I did, and you've met Will Glendenning, who's from a very different background than me, Protestant Unionist, former UDR man. But we've worked over the years, and he gathered oral history of former serving RUC officers and Garda Síochána, which is the police in the south of Ireland, and I wrote a play about their experience on the border, which people find very funny, given my background, that I'm writing about them, but all the reviews of the play itself have been excellent. And
it's an amazing play. It's truly so powerful. Yeah, we talked about how much it really challenged our own assumptions and thinking, and it humanizes. It does. It humanizes, but you've done an incredible job of basically moving through every question we possibly came up with to ask you. And this feels like a really incredible place to land, which is like when we came and we saw the play that night, we were like, how do you get from being, a prisoner of war and going through the experience you went to writing this play? And you spoke about Che Guevara's quote, true revolutionaries are guided by feelings of love. And I'd love for you to end us there, to land us there, just like, how did you get there, and what do you see as the potential outcomes of doing that humanizing work?
Well, I suppose, the prison protests, apart from saying educationally, I really think you're thinking that on so many levels, and I suppose one of the things, particularly, a lot of work I do is with women and women roles. I mean, Green and Blue is male, but a lot of the other things I'm generally writing is female roles, and it's about and Joanna, who you met and coming into jail and did stuff. So you start to, I suppose, if you become aware of your own oppression and how you're being brutalised, then you have to think. And it's a very simple thing, and probably my parents probably told me growing up, like, to treat others the way you want to be treated yourself, and it is a very simple philosophy. And my father would have said, no, if you can't do someone a good turn, never do them a bad one. And if you internalise that, it's about saying, well, people depending on their birth, their parents, their community, their situation, then that's the things that decide them in a particular way, but they're ordinary people like yourself. So it was, I suppose that would have been a big sort of lesson at that time, of being common conscious of how you engage with other people. Even, and I think it's to our credit, after the whole protests, that we had a particular approach in the jail, and we ended up writing I wrote a charter for our wings, which was for the prisoners that, everyone are entitled to be there, and like it's never physical brutality or sexual assault or anything at all. But also in terms of the prison guards, that they come under the wing. We don't respect their badge or the uniform that they wear, but as people will respect them and their right to come on the wing, and if they want a cup of tea, coffee, how you want to read a book, go and read a book. You want to go to the yard, do whatever you want until the wing. You won't be touched at all on it until you start to try to harass or oppress us, and if you do, we will use anything bar nothing to stop you. And most of them went, that's fine with me. No. So it's recognised that there's a human there, but there's the. And we ended up with, prison guards prefer to work on our wings rather than loyalist wings. So it was, then I suppose,
that's interesting.
Getting out of jail and continuing that work, continue to develop also, and see that you can't be driven by hate. Thankfully, probably was a time. Well, there was a time. Not probably during the protest where probably I hated in a way I'd never hated in my life before. The degree of it, and then you realise that's not affecting anybody else other than myself. That's just. And our things was a pettiness, and it's a thing which would still rage up today when I see it, of pettiness, and particularly of bureaucracies, and that thing of power. And I had been in Europe at one time, going into America, and I need a special visa to get into America, and you go through the whole process, and I got it, and stamped at the State Department and everything else. Then I arrived in Washington, ironically, to speak on feminism at a International Studies Association. Gets pulled in at the airport, and the guy sort of almost outraged. What's this, an Irish terrorist here to speak on feminism? I'm just taken off this room where this elderly Sri Lankan guy and Indian guy are brought in, and the real aggression of the guards, and the ones who I happened to be seeing, whether black or Hispanic, and male and female. And it was all with these other guys, but. Basically, do you speak English, and really over them, and my attitude was, I'm here legally, want to put me back on a plane to Ireland, no big deal, I'm always back home again, I'm here at an invite, and then how it changes, and it's good to be back in that situation where you realise the power again of there, and then suddenly, obviously someone sat down and went, okay, why are we holding this guy McEwen? Because he has a passport, he's English, he's white, he's got permission. And then it changes to Dr. McEwen. Is there anybody in our side that knew we could contact? And then it became Lawrence and Zenta at bottom. And I'm more or less trying to keep them at a distance. I'm with these guys. Yeah. I'm not part of your.
You're like, I'm over here with this dude.
Yeah. And bring my bag and show them the bag that's okay. And there's almost now fear on their part that they have messed up, and now is this white doctor?
Well, we marginalised the wrong person.
Yeah. And there's that, and you're thinking, and once they go off duty in the streets of Washington. By our communities, they're going to be seen as piece of shit, or whatever, because they're working class people, they're black, Hispanic, whatever else. And become aware of just this of, regardless of the situation, that idea of power, and how some people try to cling on to this or grab at this sort of elusive thing of power. And probably I can understand why it happens in their lives. So suddenly they're in a position where they have a wee bit of power. We've seen it in the jail with prison guards who on the outside were nothing, but now they're in jail. They have the keys. There's a point whenever they're in charge, and then that point goes, and then suddenly it's like, oh God, how did that happen? So I suppose all of those things that have helped me over the years to say that you shouldn't be embittered. You should be proud of what you come through, and the goal must be a better society, isn't it? And there's people who today will totally oppose you, and if tomorrow they come around till seeing things differently, then you befriend them. You don't go, I remember 20 years ago you did this, or 30. We've all made mistakes. We've all always at different levels of consciousness at one stage. And I do think that quote of Guevara's is, well, the whole number is great, let's be realistic and attempt the impossible. Exactly. Which I think is great.
Let's be realistic and attempt the impossible.
Yeah. But then also Emma Goldman is that I used to use that in my emails all the time about if I can't dance, I don't want to be part of your revolution. Because Bobby's quote was, let our revenge be the laughter of our children. And I thought again, for someone in those conditions to be able to think outside of the box.
Exactly.
And there's not hatred, there's no anger, there's no nothing else. It's like